This lecture is meant for the students of public administration of in our MA Political Science second year, which is fourth semester class. Today we are going to study public policy analysis in this brief online lecture of ours. Let's start by trying to understand what exactly do we mean by public policy. See, the study of public policy actually began during the 1950s, and disciplines such as economics, then management, and our very own public administration have been studying it as an important topic since then. As the very term suggests, public policy is not about policy of some private company or some small group, but it refers to policy in a field where general public interest is involved, where some common actions needs to be taken, and it also presupposes with certainty some kind of government action. As a term, policy denotes, among other elements, guidance for action. It may take the form of a declaration of goal, a course of action, declaration of general purpose, an authoritative decision. Anderson believes that public policy is primarily a purposive course of action, which is a course of action with a certain goal, followed by the government in dealing with some matters of public concern. David Easton believes public policy is the authoritative allocation of values for the whole of society. Public policy is actually the process by which governments translate their political vision into programs and actions to deliver outcomes, and these are primarily desired changes in the real world that the government wants to see. Public policies are always done within the constitutional framework of any country, of some other country. Public policy is considered strong when it solves the problems that the government wants to be solved efficiently and effectively, when it serves and supports governmental institutions and policies, and when it encourages active citizenship. If these are not done this way, then we do not consider public policy as strong, we consider that as a very weak public policy. There could be different types of public policy. There could be substantive public policy, which are primarily concerned with the general welfare and development of the entire society. The programs like provision of education, employment opportunities, economic stabilization, law and order enforcement, anti-pollution legislation, these are the result of substantive policy formulation. These do not relate to any particular or privileged segments of the society. We can also have distributive public policies. Distributive public policies are meant primarily for specific segments of the society. It can be in the areas of grant of goods, public welfare, or health services. These mainly include all public assistance and welfare programs. We can also have redistributive policies. Redistributive policies are concerned with the rearrangement of policies which are concerned with bringing about basic social and economic changes. We can also have regulatory policies. Policies that seek to regulate. Regulate what? Regulate trade, regulate business, regulate safety measures, public utilities, to name a few. This type of regulation is usually done by independent organizations that work on behalf of the government. Now let us turn our attention to public policy stages, different stages of public policy. Public policy, usually we start formulation of public policy or making of public policy by defining the problem or the issues that needs to be solved. So first thing is to define the problem or problem definition. Once you have defined the problem, you go for setting the agenda. What needs to be done? Who will do it? How is it to be done? This is agenda setting. And once this is done, you go for policy formulation, drafting the policy, making the policy. Once you have made the policy, you go for policy legitimation. What course of action should the policy take to take itself forward so that it is legitimized among the public? The people accept it, adopt it, follow it. So we go for policy legitimation. Once policy is legitimized, you think that we have enough points that will lead to legitimation of this policy, then you go for policy decision making. Once you have done policy decision making, you go for policy implementation, which is execution of the policy. And once you have done the execution, you go for policy evaluation. You evaluate the policy, you monitor, and in different ways you can monitor the policy and you can evaluate the policy. Suppose you are not happy with the way the policy is giving your outcomes, then what do? You can change the policy, you can go for policy change. So it is a kind of cyclical process which doesn't have one beginning and one end, but it is like a cycle. It may seem, when we were discussing, that it begins at one point, it begins at problem definition of problem and ends at policy evaluation. But it is actually not like that. In practical life, when the government does this public policy formulation and then implementation, then evaluation, it can also begin the policy making, or it can abandon or alter at any point of the cycle. Attempts to change existing policies often requires hard evidence, diplomacy, determination to succeed. There are usually several opinions and perceptions of policies, and therefore public policies are always a subject for debate. Now let us turn our attention to policy analysis. Policy analysis is a technique used in public administration to enable the civil servants, the activists and others to examine and evaluate the available options to implement the goals of laws and elected officials. The process is also used in administration of very large organizations with complex policies. It has been defined as the process of determining which of various policies will achieve a given set of goals in light of the relations between policies and goals. Policy analysis is primarily a systematic and data-based alternative to intuitive judgments about effects of policy or policy options. Policy analysis is used for problem assessment and monitoring. It is also used as a before the fact decision. Before you start taking decision about public policy, you do research about what needs to be done. So that is also public policy analysis, and you can also go in for public policy analysis during the evaluation period. So in this way, public policy analysis can be divided into two major fields. One, analysis of existing policy, which is a kind of analytical and descriptive work. Since you are trying to explain policies and their development, it can also be analysis for new policy, and in this sense it is prescriptive. since it involves formulating policies and proposals based on some principles. Now let us turn our attention to different models of public policy analysis. There are many different models that you will find in different books. I am focusing on a few. Systems model, institutional model, rational model, incremental policy model, normative optimum model of growth. Then we'll only discuss this much today. Let's start with systems model. Systems model is primarily what you have studied as structural functional analysis in your most probably political analysis course given by David Easton. It is also called black box model, and the main work of this black box is to convert the demands of the society into policies. So the political system here is centered on the institutions and the personnel of policy making. This model shows public policy as an output of the political system. So at the heart of the political system here are the institutions and the personnel for policy making. These include the chief executives, the legislatures, the judges, the bureaucrats. So in this system version, they translate the inputs into outputs. Now what is this? What is the problem with this public policy analysis model? It is considered to be too simplistic. It also is supposed to be ignoring fragmentary nature of the black box. Many in between phenomenon processes are not taken into account. Bureaucracy is not considered. So this is a problem with this model. Let us go over to the second model, institutional model. Institutional approach or institutional model primarily sees public policy as being determined by public institutions. According to this model, public policies gain legitimacy because they go through the route of legislature, executive and judiciary. Now this is a very structural kind of an explanation, and it's very important, but this doesn't give the entire picture of how public policy analysis is done. It doesn't give adequate attention to linkages between government structures and the content of public policy. That is the criticism. Let us go over to rational model. Rational model is best known as rational comprehensive model, which was developed by Herbert Simon, and we have already studied it in the last semester. Rational model is the most normative of the rational policy making models. It offers prescriptive recommendations about how policy should be made. The model's main premise is that decision making involves selecting alternatives to meet previously stated goals. It is considered that in an ideal form, all possible alternatives and all possible consequences must be considered. It has primarily 6 basic steps, if you remember we had discussed in the last semester. First, a problem must be identified. Second, the values, goals and objectives of the decision maker must be determined and ranked in order of priority. Third, all the options of to achieve goals must be identified. Fourth, cost and benefit analysis must be done for each option. Fifth, cost and benefits must be compared. Sixth, on the basis of this comparison, rational decision maker has to select the course of action which maximizes the outcomes in line with values, goals and objectives identified. This model assumes the administrator acts in a world of complete certainty but also is neutral and value free. This provides a desirable prescription, but it is an impossibility in view of time and human capacity. It assumes that objectives are value free and neutral. If they were, it might be easy to identify them quickly. Then move on to identify alternatives, evaluate them and make a decision. While doing so, they must choose between the option that gives maximum profit and minimum loss. It is not always so easy. So, because we know that organizations do not function like problem solving computers. Somebody had said that organizations actually function like garbage cans, in which problems and possible solutions are poured to get the best outcome. They are mixed and you get the best outcome. Let us go over to incremental model. Incremental model was primarily developed by Charles Lindblom. Lindblom's early version of this model explained policy making as muddling through. In response to many criticisms, he changed his own model and sought to modify it by introducing some kind of prescriptive elements like disjointed incrementalism, then partition, mutual adjustment, and third, strategic analysis. Lindblom believed many small steps would likely lead to a good decision, or that at least minimal damage would be done because change would be marginal. Also, an opportunity would be provided to test the water with minimum chance for error. The concept of successive limited comparisons starts from existing situation and brings about changes incrementally. This contrasts with rational model, which starts at the root, beginning with the basic issues on each occasion and making decisions from ground up. In this case, policy is seen as a continuation of the previous policy with minimum changes. Existing policies with their programs and expenditures are regarded as the base. Previous policies are naturally taken as legitimate as the administrator or the policymaker is not very certain about the new policies. The basic approach of incremental model is that decision making tends to be unplanned and reactive. Marginal changes are made to existing policy. Decisions are not based on preset objectives. Now, incremental model is often criticized for favoring inertia and status quo, and also for being very conservative, that doesn't allow any radical changes. Yet, this model is considered to be relatively risk-free compared to other models. Now, let's go over to another model, normative optimum model. This model has been developed by somebody called Ezekiel Dror. Ezekiel Dror primarily aims at increasing the rational content of the government. He believes that incremental approach is unjust. It's not fair because it creates a gap between those who have more power and those who have little power. In place of incremental and rational models, Dror offers his own model, which is like an alternative. He keeps his model as the aims of his model as number one, need for rationality, which is like Herbert Simon. Second, the need for introduction of management techniques for enhancing rationality of decision making at low levels. Third, the policy science approach. Fourth, the need to take account of values and irrational elements in decision making. Now, Dror's aim is to increase the rational content of the government on one hand, and to build into his model the extra rational dimensions of decision making on the other hand. That is why Dror calls it normative optimalism, which combines core elements of the rational model, which is the cost benefit model, with extra rational factors which are excluded from pure rationality model of Herbert Simon. He argues that what is actually needed is a model that fits into reality while directing towards the best outcome. Now, Dror, in place of the pure rational model, Dror puts forward a more complex model as his normative optimum model, which has some 18 stages. Complex model with 18 stages. Meta policy making stage, which includes processing values, processing reality, processing problems, surveying, processing, developing resources, designing, evaluating, redesigning policy making systems, allocating problems, values, resources, determining policy making strategy, etc. Then the second is policy making stage, which includes sub-allocating resources, establishing operational goals, establishing set of significant values, preparing a set of major alternative policies, preparing reliable predictions of the significant benefits and cost of various alternatives, comparing and predicting benefits and costs of various alternatives, identifying the best ones, evaluating the benefits and costs of best alternatives and deciding whether they are good or not. Then a post policy making stage, which includes motivating the execution of policy, executing the policy, evaluating policy making, communication feedback channels. According to Dror, this 18-stage model operates at two interacting levels, rational and extra rational. Through this model, Dror aims to analyze the real world, which involves values and different perceptions of reality, to create an approach which combines core elements of rational model with extra rational factors. So I'll stop here. These are the different models of policy, public policy analysis that we usually study. I hope you understand this. If there is any problem, please do let me know through your comments or by making a personal call to me at my number. Thank you so much.